Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Yasodhanandana Brajajanarandana Jamanatira Vanachari Yamanatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Bacharne Namaste Srinivane Pashchate Desatarne Mukam Kaloti Vachalam Pangamalavategadim Yakripa Tamam Vande Shiguru Dinatarnam Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jajam Udirayet. Okay. Oh, here we are. 12, 6, 12, 9. Okay. This verse doesn't have a purport, so I'm going to read a few verses ahead. Oja saho balang pranam. One word at a time? Okay. Oja saho balang pranam amritang Mrityum eva cha tam agyaya jano hetum atmanang manyate jadam hojasaho balang pranam amritang mrityum eva cha Tammagaya jano hetum Admanang manite dadam Oja saho balang pranam Amritang mrityum eva cha Tammagaya jano hetum Admanang manite dadam Ojasaha balang pranam Amritang mrityum eva cha Tammagaya jano hetum Atmanang manyate jadam Ojasaha balang pranam Amritam janamedra cha Amamagaya majano hetum Admanang manite jadam Ajoja balang pranam Amritam mrityumeva cha Tammagaya jano hetum Admanang manite jadam Ajoja balang pranam Amritang mrityum eva cha Tammagaya jano hetum Admanang manyate jadam Ojasaho balang pranam Amritang mrityum eva cha Amritaya hetum Admanang manyate jadam Ajasa balang pranam Amritang mrityum eva cha Tammagaya jano hetum Atmanam manyate jadam Oja, the strength of the senses. Saha, the strength of the mind. Balam, the strength of the body. Pranam, the living condition. Amritam, immortality. Mrityum, death. Eva, indeed. Cha, also. Tam, him, the Supreme Lord. Agyaya, without knowing. Jana, A foolish person. Hetum, the cause. Admanam, the body. Manyate, considers. Jadam, although good as stone. Translation. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. Repeat after me. Our sensory prowess, mental power, bodily strength, living force, immortality, and mortality are all subject to the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not knowing this, foolish people think the dull material body to be the cause of their activities. Okay, so there's no purport for this. Text 10. Yata darumaya nari, yata patramaya mriga, evang bhutane maghavan, ishatadrani vidhibho. Translation. O King Indra, as a wooden doll that looks like a woman, or as an animal made of grass and leaves, cannot move or dance independently, but depends fully on the person who handles it, all of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead. No one is independent. Okay. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, verse 142. Ekale Ishwara Krishna, Ara Sabarbritya, Jare Jaiche Na Chaya, Salataiche Kare Nritya. Sorry if I butchered that. Lord Krishna alone is the Supreme Controller, and all others are His servants. They dance as He makes them do so. That's the translation of that verse. We are all servants of Krishna. We have no independence. We are dancing according to the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But out of ignorance and delusion, we think we are independent of the Supreme Will. Therefore, it is said, Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadar Adir Govinda Sarvakarna Karnam. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for He is the prime cause of all causes. Brahma Samhita 5.1. So Indra is being instructed by Vritrashura that we are not independent at all. Everything is being done by the Personality of Godhead. The living entity thinks that they're the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by material nature. But we're thinking that because my body is moving and I'm, doing so many things, we think that we are the doer. And actually, because of that, we are entangled in the reaction to what we think that we are doing. There's a gross law of material nature, which is this action and reaction. That's how they throw a rocket into outer space. The fuel comes out one end and it goes the other way. So we know that. So the law of karma is very powerful. We don't see, there's so many things we don't see that are going on in the world. And so we are in an illusion that we want. We want to be the Supreme Controller. We want to be this body. We want to possess and enjoy and control because we are part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is the Supreme Controller. So the Supreme Controller doesn't have anyone above him. There's no check and balance on Krishna. He does whatever he wants to do. And we're lucky that he's a really nice person, because he could probably cause a lot of havoc if he wasn't. But he's extremely wise and very, very merciful, and he has arranged everything for us to carry out our little desires to be that Supreme Person. And so when we go out to speak to the public, it's not very much appreciated, because people want to be an illusion, right? There's a famous line, famous movie, you can't handle the truth. But we can't handle the truth. We don't really want to give up what we came here to do. And so people say, "Oh, don't preach to me. You're all putting yourself on a pedestal, holier than thou. I don't want to. People don't appreciate it." So, by the mercy of Krishna, he's made himself available simply by the holy name. The holy name, even people who don't like it, it still enters their ear. And that's why the chanting is so important, going out on the street and chanting. Because people, it's just like Prabhupada says that when you have jaundice, if you've ever gotten hepatitis, the symptom is jaundice. Your eyes get yellow, everything tastes horrible, right? So the cure for that condition is to eat sugar candy. But it tastes horrible. So people don't have a taste for hearing about God. But that's the cure. That's the cure. So we're distributing literature, right? And even if they don't understand philosophy, if you give them some prasadam, it is the direct incarnation of Krishna. So people are getting benefit from this movement imperceptibly, right? If you go on YouTube and there's so many people post, George Harrison's, My Sweet Lord, and if you read the comments, it's so wonderful. They say, "Well, I don't believe in God, but I believe in George," right? Because he's got the Hare Krishna mantra in there, okay? And so many people do a cover, or you've got Billy Preston, or you have like a reunion, George Harrison reunion. People are chanting Hare Krishna, and at the end, you just see their faces just lit up, just ear to ear. They're just so happy, but they don't know why. They can't understand. This is because of Hare Krishna mantra. So our fallen condition is that we're jaundiced. We don't have a taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna. Our taste is about everything but, right? Any newspaper, all these things, what is it? Anything but something. And if it is something about God, comparative religion, or some welfare activity, which is nothing wrong there, okay? But the actual thing is not taught. Ask me how I know. I grew up in the Christian church, and I'm sure people have a similar experience. Maybe not this Ramabati, because he grew up as a Vaishnava. But people in general have no idea. They don't have any idea that I'm not this body. So naturally, they think, well, what's the best thing to do? Well, welfare activities, right? Or we're going to, feed the poor, or, this Father Joe's villages, well, what I call, house the hungry, cure the naked, and, feed the sick. That it doesn't really cure the problem. It doesn't get to the root. The root of the problem is that we have fallen into this world, and we're identifying with the body, and thinking that this body is going to give us pleasure, because sometimes it does. So let's wrap it up, right? Eat something, but let's eat something better, or eat more, or whatever it is. Eat things which are unmentionable, right? And so further and further entangling themselves, not knowing that this is what's actually happening. We've not been, our modern educational system, at least the public education, has no clue whatsoever what we are, who we are, and what not to do. We don't have that class in high school. Remember that class, Wisdom 101? Anybody take that class? And there's Wisdom 201, with lab, right? Wisdom. What have the textbook is wisdom for dummies, right? That's the textbook. We don't get that. So what is that we're not getting? It's a second look. It's a step back. It's like, okay, back in the day it was if it feels good, do it, right? That's the hippie mantra. Okay, but wisdom is maybe I shouldn't, right? And that's what the function of this teaching, religious teaching, is to put a damper on things. Wait. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, right? Don't do this, don't do that. And people don't like that. You don't want to hear that message because it's like being a party pooper. No, we shouldn't have a party. I once, and when I was in high school, I had a girlfriend. She was from the LDS. She was a Mormon. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't go to a dance. Couldn't go to the movies. Okay, because they had a totally different outlook in life, which, of course, at the time I didn't understand. But that's actually the purpose of religion, is to curtail. This is actually the purpose of human life, is to curtail the animal propensity, right? Otherwise, it's just, grab for all the gusto you can, modern advertising slogans, back in the day, grab for all the gusto you can, because the underlying idea is, because tomorrow you're going to die, better get it now before you're dead and gone, right? But people don't get the instruction that there's something higher, there's something better, there's something more enjoyable than sense gratification. And that's the purpose of human life, because animals, they're all about sense gratification. Whatever at the time seems like something that they want, just go for it, right? A female animal walks by, they're in heat, well, then it's time to do that. But the human form of life is very important because we are given a chance to make choices, right? The animals, they can't choose. When it's time to bark, they bark, right? They can't understand, it's nighttime and I'm outside of somebody's window, I shouldn't be barking. They have no idea. They don't think like that, okay? But human beings have discrimination, right? So with that discrimination, with those choices, means there are consequences, okay? So, we all kind of know, what goes around comes around. But there are people say, that's not true, there's no such thing as karma. But then you think, okay, something terrible happens. And someone says, what did I do to deserve that? Aha. They're actually admitting that something I may have done is bringing this misfortune, right? There's a lot of things that are kind of under the surface that we sort of understand, but it's not fleshed out, right? We don't know the subtleties of the law of karma. So when one country's, population is eating meat, they don't connect that to the fact that they're always going to war. The law of karma is so powerful, okay? And to think about it, something that is subtle is very powerful. And I'll give this example. If you have like a solvent, if the more powerful the solvent, okay, it gets, if you put solvent on something, it soaks in, right? If you put water on something, sometimes the water won't soak in. But if you mix it with some alcohol, okay, it becomes more watery, okay? And there are solvents that are so powerful, if you put it in your hand, it'll actually go into your hand, right? They have this stuff. It'll actually drip out the other side, believe it or not. So the law of karma is everywhere. No one can escape it, not even Brahma, right? And so we see Lord Indra's in trouble, okay? He, for whatever reason, got himself in this situation. I'm sure he didn't desire it. It's like people who would go to jail. It's not like, I'm planning on going to jail. No, they don't think like that. But they have a mentality which obliges them to end up there, right? And so everyone in this world has this mentality that I don't want to serve Krishna. I want to be Krishna. I don't want to have to serve somebody and be, subservient. So the message of Krishna consciousness is to reform. It's like we're in jail. In fact, that's the way this world is described. That this is Maya, right? This kingdom of Maya is for those who have rebelled. In the same way that people who go to the prison, they have this criminal mentality. They don't want to do the right thing. They get a charge out of doing the wrong thing and trying to get away with it, right? So, it's hard. The first thing you have to do if you want to reform is to realize, okay, I made a mistake, right? You have to admit, okay, uncle, I've done something wrong, okay, what can I do now, right? But people don't even realize the law of karma. They think, okay, well, I'll do all kinds of sinful things and profess it, to the priest on Saturday and, begin again on Monday or Sunday. But it's the desire itself which is causing the problem. So they'll do it again and again and again. And the Prabhupada said like that the criminal, do the same thing over and over, especially in association with other criminals. What happens when people go to jail? They become a better criminal, right? They learn all the ways to, avoid the law and get away with it, right? But in this world, we have laws, which are mostly based on biblical teachings, right? That we have the justice system and we have all these things, right? But it's not perfect. So we have people committing crimes, murder and this and that, and then they put them in prison when they really should be executed. Okay, so in Kali Yuga, everything is upside down and backwards. There's nothing makes any sense. But people don't realize that their real interest is God. Everyone's thinking we're winging it, right? And we don't want someone to tell us that there's a supreme person because the reason we came here is to avoid him, right? So this is a very personal movement. Everything about Krishna consciousness is personal within us and our relationship with Krishna. And so sometimes we get to a point where, I don't want to surrender, right? I don't want to do what I know I should do, okay? And that's, another sign of our sickness, right? If you actually love somebody, would you do something to displease them? You probably wouldn't if you really love them, right? So we're trying to learn how to love God. We're trying to learn how to love Krishna. From the point of, I don't believe in God, I don't want to hear about it, to go all the way to, prema bhakti, This is what Krishna consciousness is all about. And, how long did it take to become Krishna conscious? Snap of a finger, or it could take many lifetimes. And it depends on us. Okay? And so if we're really serious about Krishna consciousness, you keep good association. Right? If you associate with materialistic people, they become materialistic. It's just, modes of nature, right? If you're trying to get a degree in college, are you going to hang out in the bar? It may take a while, right? And if you're, into all kinds of passionate activities, then you probably won't hang out in a library and read books. It's according to what kind of association and what kind of modes of nature that you surround yourself with. And if you associate with devotees, then you learn how to be a devotee and how to have the devotional attitude towards Krishna. And by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, we are given a very simple mantra that can immediately change your life. I remember years ago there was a devotee named Jayo Das. Anybody remember him? Jayo? Yeah. So I think it was like before they had the new temple room. Jayo would come in the temple. Big fellow. I'm sorry? L.A., yeah. Do you remember? Anyway, so he'd sit in front of Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram. I'm not exaggerating, right? Kind of a little annoying. And he became the most wonderful devotee. You could just see it was just transformed, right? Of course, we don't know what history, in the previous life or wherever, sometimes they come in. But we see people, some rogue on the street causing trouble to the devotees. And then later on become a really nice Vaishnava. Remember Bhakti Nick became the Prabhupada Das? You know Prabhupada Das? He lives in Mayapur now. Okay. He's constantly 24 hours listening to recording of Srila Prabhupada for years and years and years and years. Before he became a devotee, he was harassing the devotees. And he's quite a big fellow. And another devotee confronted him one day and kind of challenged him. He wasn't used to that. He's, tough guy from Philly, right? And, oh, gee. And it turned around. It turned him around. He became a really nice devotee. So this movement is very powerful. But Maya is also powerful. Okay, we've had many stalwart devotees leave and fall into Maya again because our hearts are not cleansed. Okay, and that's why the chanting is so important, to cleanse the desire. Okay, and at the path of bhakti, the path goes like this. It gets narrower and narrower. So we never want to criticize anyone who's on this path, because we're all, going to face these difficulties as you make more advancement, right? You see someone in a big position and maybe he's, whatever, and maybe they fall down, they go away or whatever. But we'll all be confronted and tested for our desires. Do we have what it takes to overcome these desires? Maybe we have desires, but we're not acting on them, right? So we know by contemplating the objects of our senses, our mind becomes bewildered, intelligence becomes bewildered, right? And then we fall away from the path. So we always have to be looking and seeing what is in our heart, right? And even if we have some material desires, by the strength of chanting, by the strength of hearing about Krishna and associating with devotees, it's like the serpent. If you take the fangs out, right, then it's not as dangerous. And the boat of Maya, we're still within material nature. And there's all kinds of upheavals. There are things that go on within the society, or perhaps, maybe we visit the home, or, some few years ago I went to a reunion. I'll tell you frankly, I wish I hadn't gone. Reigniting old friends and this and that, and oh my gosh, I don't want to get into it. But Prabhupada makes an example. Sometimes you used to smoke, and then you meet some old friends, and so sometimes things happen. But we always want to remain in devotee association. Prabhupada said, don't leave the association of devotees. Okay, that's the most important thing. Even if you have like two people. Some years ago, Jamuna Devi, who sings the song, and I think it's Vishaka. They lived on a farm, right? I think years ago it was in Oregon. I believe they were living on a farm. Anyway, and this one Prabhupada was still here, and so at that time they actually put that cookbook together. They were working together in the Jamuna's cookbook. Anyway. And so they were getting criticism. How come you're not living in ISKCON? And Prabhupada said, it's okay. They're associating together. They're maintaining their Krishna consciousness. Okay. So association is like everything. Okay. So as you're all living, most of you living in the temple are living nearby and coming, and people who are you're associating with Prabhupada and reading Prabhupada's books. Okay? Association is extremely important. The first time I ever saw Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, 1972, and he was giving class in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And as I listened to him speak, I thought, well, this is just like reading his book. He's saying the same, it's no different. It's no different at all. So it was wonderful to be with him. But the essence of what Srila Prabhupada, and if you read Prabhupada's books, you're with Prabhupada. And I'll bet probably every one of you have had dreams with Prabhupada in the dream. Maybe you don't remember, but Srila Prabhupada is with everyone. You associate with Srila Prabhupada by hearing his words and through his representatives. Sometimes they ask Prabhupada, how do I know you're pleased? I'm doing so many things and you're somewhere else in the world. How do I know that I'm pleasing you? Prabhupada said, you have my representative. If he's pleased, I'm pleased. Right? Same thing that, how do I know Krishna's pleased? You please Srila Prabhupada? You please his representative? Right? Like they say, and Prabhupada gave the example that, if you love me, love my dog. Right? You don't disrespect the dog. It doesn't show very well. So the point is that we are giving association by distributing books, by preaching to people. We're giving association of Srila Prabhupada, right? And Prabhupada would say, what's the use of your lecture? You simply repeat what I said. Give them a book. That's the best way. Okay, and the other thing is, be blissful. Show the example. People are inspired. When I first started coming, the person that showed up at my door and sold me Bhagavad Gita, I could tell he wasn't trying to lay a trip on me. He wasn't trying to get something from me. And he was very sincere. And he would look you right in the eye. And most people are trying to get something. They're kind of like, a little shifty. You know what I mean? But these people were warm. They were very personal. They were very nice. And that's what convinced me to join. Because believe me, it wasn't on my bucket list. Okay? I was in a youth group in my church or whatever, so I wasn't unfamiliar with some kind of religious teaching. But becoming a preacher or anything like that was like the interest test I took was like at the bottom. But these people there was a movement going on. There was something happening, right? And then, this is LA, this is like February, and I made a friend at the temple, and he said, the guru is coming, Prabhupada's coming. So, he said, this is like the wave, this is like the crest of the wave, this movement. That was back in the early 70s, when, you didn't want anybody to know that you were, interested at all, right? But he said, this is and talking to him and going to the temple was like being in a bubble. It's a very, totally different atmosphere, right? That's what makes people want to join. When they see something, they feel something. They have some personal experience, right? You chant Hare Krishna. I would drive in my car on the way to school. I didn't want anybody to know I was chanting. And I was, at the time, I was very depressed, and my life was going nowhere, and I started chanting, and all of a sudden, like, wow, there's something to it. I'm actually, my depression is like evaporating. It's like and so when people actually taste something, that's when they start getting more serious about it. It's like, okay. And that, at the time, of course, I was, taking drugs or whatever, but I realized I can't have both. I can't get pleasure I have to choose. I have to go one way or the other, okay? But if you don't have something better, you can't give up what you're doing, even though it's inferior. I knew, smoking marijuana was not, the best thing, but I didn't have anything better. So when somebody comes along and says, well, if you chant Hare Krishna, well, I've done everything else, and I'm not happy, right? So, okay, then Nabhyo Rengekyo, I tried that too, right? The Buddhist chant, whatever, get what you want. But if you actually chant, you actually start feeling something, okay? That's quintessential, okay? You can have all the intellectual discourses and so on, okay? It won't make any difference if you're not tasting something out of it, right? Okay? You give up the, one thing on one side, like the yogis do, right? They deny their senses. But it won't last. They go up to the Brahmajyoti. They're not tasting anything, right? They have to come back down, okay? So we are pleasure seekers by nature. So we're always looking for something. And, in Krishna consciousness, sometimes it's a little tough, so we eat more prasadam. We associate with devotees, say something about Krishna, glorify Srila Prabhupada or the philosophy, and then we're back, right? So that's basically what Krishna consciousness is all about. Okay, it doesn't depend on anything other than association, because without it, material nature is too strong. We are 1/10,000th the tip of a hair, subatomic, and we're floating in an ocean of material energy, and we don't perceive the presence of Krishna. But we do when we talk about Krishna consciousness. When I drive around doing my job, I actually pretend that I'm talking to an assembly of my old schoolmates. Okay, and I'm trying to think of ways to attract them. But what would I say? How would I say it? How could I interest somebody who I may not know, may know, may not know? Okay, because people have, I'll be 72 next month. So I'm thinking, these are all classmates that were all the same age. We all went to the same school, and okay. How would you get someone interested who's spent their whole life, however they did it, without Krishna consciousness? Maybe they were religious, or maybe they weren't. Okay, how to attract somebody? And the main thing is, if I have some prasadam, okay, give them something to eat so they can taste something. okay, or played, My Sweet Lord, and let them sing along, okay, because any amount of lecturing isn't going to do it. It may make them, oh, that's nice, right? I'm glad you found Jesus, or you found your guru or whatever, okay? So that's for you, right? But we need to get to them so they can have a chance, okay? Somebody went out of their way to give me a book. They spent all day roaming around Westwood. I'm sure, having all kinds of doors slammed in the face. That's how we used to distribute books back in the day, to go door to door. Now it's you go to the airport or public places, but then it was knocking on the door. Saturday afternoon, first Christmas marathon, 1971, right? And somebody came to my door and changed my life. So. All right, as for any comments, Christianities, anybody?
That was very inspiring. Thank you. I hope you can give class more often, Pavamana. Probably that was very nice. I had a couple questions and you answered them actually as you went along. So I'm kidding. I still have some other things to say though, but you did a good job. That was very nice.
Hare Krishna.
So 72, you see Prabhupada in Vrindavan. You saw him for the first time. In 71, you got a book from a book distributor who went to your house in Westwood. And then they said, though, that Prabhupada was coming to the LA temple pretty quickly after that, too? You didn't see him during that time?
He came in June 1972.
Okay.
Yeah, so I joined in February, and in May, I found myself in Bombay. Okay, so then later on, when Kartik came, the devotees were switching off. We were in Bombay, so we'd send a few devotees to Vrindavan, and then they'd stay there for a couple of weeks or 10 days or whatever, and then come back and some other devotees would go. So okay. That's how so I went with Harikesha Swami. I think he was a brahmachari at the time, but I can't remember. Anyway, so we went together, and then when that was over, Prabhupada they had arranged Pandal programs around India. So he did an entourage of devotees to go. So I was able to go along, And so during that time, it was from, the month of, after Kartik was over, which I guess is October, late October, so then through to the end of the year, they went to Hyderabad for about 10 days, and then through Bombay for a day or two, and then up to Ahmedabad, and then back in January. The big, Cross Maidan festival, January 72. I'm sorry, 73. So during that time, interested people would invite Srila Prabhupada for lunch. So sometimes we go to lunch engagements and stuff like that. So I was not an intimate disciple or anything, but I was able to be there when Prabhupada was there, eat with him and stuff.
Were you initiated in India in 1972?
Yes.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. First initiation, second initiation in Gaur Purnima in 73.
The Krishna Balaram temple you were initiated.
Was that?
You initiated the Krishna Balaram temple? That was open.
No. The second initiation was in Mayapur, Gaur
Where
Purnima.
were you first initiated?
In Bombay. It was by letter, correspondence course, correspondence group. There were about 10 of us that got initiated at that time in Bombay. That's when I was with Giriraj.
Was your Brahmin initiation in person with Prabhupada?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And all glories to that book distributor who went through Westwood and door to door. That's really powerful. It's not an easy service.
Not an easy service at all.
Wow.
And, it's very unpopular at the time.
Wow.
And I don't remember his name, but he was in Philadelphia running a soup kitchen or something like that years later. Maybe someone knows who it is. But yeah, and also that devotee who befriended me. When people come to the temple, I mean, it's a pretty powerful thing. If you come here and you find some devotee, so you become friends. You try to, and so the familiar face, even though you don't know what you're seeing, you don't know what you're doing, but you got somebody there who can kind of, hold your hand and, kind of help you out. That's really, I found it was very important for me.
And then speaking initiations, do you know who Prabhupada Dasa's spiritual master was? 'Cause that's a really cool name that he got.
Prabhupada Das, I think it's Gunda Grai. Our Prabhupada Das, yeah.
You know who it is?
It's Gunda Grai.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Gunda Grai.
Yeah, that's a wonderful name. Yeah, you get to call him
Prabhupada
Prabhupada.
Das. And then Rupa Goswami Das, so they also got initiated, I think at the same time, right? Rupa Goswami? But anyway, the painter, he moved to back east.
Prabhupada Prabhu. I have a question about the text, and it might be a Dravidic question. When we did the word for word, the second word, saho, and then the third word in the third part, jano, when we do the word for word, it's AH. It's changed in the definitions. So I'm wondering why do they change it to O's there instead of the A's or the AH's? Does he have a mic?
Which line?
Because
That word, the second word, saha, saho,
yeah, and
originally was saha.
and then that same with jano too. It's janaha. So I wonder why it changes in the verse.
Why can't it change? You want it to change?
Yeah, we're learning about usage. Yeah.
Because there's something in Sanskrit, if you allow me, is that okay? Called sandhi. Sandhi is where two words meet, the end of one word and the beginning of another word. And there's all these different rules for changing usually the last letter or the last couple of letters of the previous word. And the whole idea is to smooth make it easy to pronounce. You see? Ojak saho balam pranam. Now we find that sometimes, classic case, ito nishinga padato nishinga, is it nishinga or nishingo? There's a couple of nishinga, and so many devotees get it wrong, they've learned it this way forever. But one thing you can remember, if you want to remember it, is that, you see those 4 lines there? Originally they're 2 lines. Every verse is 2 lines. Even the first verse of the Bhagavatam, which is so long, it's actually 2 lines long, and it's broken in half, the first line. These are called padas. Padas means a section or a foot, And so you will only find the aha or the aha. This is one thing that devotees don't do. When it's a long A, and then an H with a dot under it, then at the end, now it has to be at the end of the second or third pada, the second or the fourth pada. Then you have the aha or aha. We find that some of the Indians, especially the devotees don't usually who grew up in the movement, that they're putting it in wherever they find it, the middle of a line, adding a syllable. You don't add these syllables. Almost without any exception, there's 8 syllables on these short ones. There's 8 syllables per pada. You can count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's certain rules about this configuration, especially at the end of the second and fourth pada. It's always da 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 da. Amitam mritjumevacha da 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 da. Manyate jadam, da 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 da. You'll find that practically in every single time. These are certain rules of the composition of Sanskrit. So one thing is just to be in awe of the intelligence of Vyasadeva, who wrote all this and followed all those rules. Now occasionally there's an exception. You'll find an extra syllable, often with the word Bhagavata. I can show you a few, but it's very, very rare. In the longer verses, we find, there's often a little flexibility. We've had a whole bunch of prayers, verses by Vichasra was singing and everything, and there was some leeway. I could show you if you want to get into it. But the main answer to your question is that you'll find the changes in the letters at the end to smooth out the pronunciation. Now, since we're talking about this, if I could just give one note on pronunciation. One thing that's interesting, you see that M with the dot over it? And that's, I saw the anuswar, I believe. There's two, the sarga is the H. Now, when the next letter, the next word begins with a word, the next word begins with a letter that's of the same class, which is like a labial. Labial means just the ma. Robert gives this whole thing with upper varga, right? That's another story. So when it's the same letter, which it is here, that balam, the M in balam, sounds just like an M. You don't change. But the same thing with amritam mrityum. You see that? So it's ojak saho balam pranam amritam mrityum evacha. And the same thing on the last one, all of them. Atmanam manyate jadam. But when it's part of another class, then you have it sounds like the N in the French word bone. Then you have to learn how to speak French. So a lot of devotees don't know that. But it's basically like, anyway, we can get into more details. But the main answer to your question is that's why in the synonyms, what we call synonyms, we call word by words because they're not exactly synonyms. You will find the original form of the word, the original form. That's why it was saha, and this is saho. And in this verse itself, it's transformed to make smooth chanting.
Is that only in the transliteration, or is it in the original Sanskrit? It's in the original Sanskrit.
The transliteration is a perfect equivalent of what you find in the Devanagari.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is actually saho.
Saho.
Okay.
Yes.
That was such a wonderful glorification of our scripture. Everything's Gita. It's just a song. Right? Our scripture is an amazing song.
Everything we read is a song. These are all tremendous poetry. Prabhupada even mentions that in I think it's the preface or the conclusion to the CC. It says Kaviraj. You got the word. This is the word Kaviraj. He wasn't born with that name, Krishna Das Kaviraj. He actually got that appellation because of writing the Govinda Lilamrita, a whole Sanskrit book. You weren't in the class. I was with the evening class. I gave one sample of a verse. He writes this beautiful verse describing Krishna coming back from the forest of Vrindavan, and rhyme at the beginning and the end of each line, which is very difficult to do. And that's just one little sample. There's over 2,000 verses in that book. And he wrote that when he got to Vrindavan. The CC was written at the end. He even puts in there at the beginning of the Madhya Lila. I think it's second chapter. He puts a summary of the Anja Lila, and he says in there, basically, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm having a health crisis, and he said, I'll put a little summary because that was the whole purpose of writing it. But he survived that, and he was able to finish it. So it was tremendous effort that he put into it. But the poetry, he and Vyasadeva, Rupa Goswami, oh my God, and Krishna Karnamrita, that's one of the reasons I stayed a devotee so long, so I could chant those shlokas.
The days where it's prose and it's such a long verse, we don't write it. Is that still 2 padams, 2 sentences?
No. That's the whole thing. Okay. Those rules are just for poetry verses.
Gotcha.
But they say that the Sanskrit is the language of the gods. Don't they say like that? So
Sanskrit means perfectly composed. Sanskritam, yeah.
So in the spiritual world, right? They don't talk; they sing, right? Every word of the song.
Deva Nagari.
All right.
Hare Krishna Pavamana Prabhu, can I make a quick
Hare Krishna.
comment?
Bless you.
Hare Bol, please accept my obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Maitreya Das.
Maitreya, Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. So thank you for such a nice class, philosophically, and also for the remembrances and your observations about devotee association. It's so nice to have your association. Really, it's so nice to see you. And you were my friend when I was first coming to the temple, so your comments about having friends at the temple are germane to my situation, and I want to really thank you for that. There's just nothing like it. Just want to make 2 quick comments. You mentioned Shastras and that they restrict our activities. And it's interesting, the Sanskrit meaning of the word shastra is that which restricts. So just a comment. You also mentioned the Ten Commandments, and I think it's interesting that other scriptures, the Quran and the Bible, there's this, you must do this, and you must just accept it, and there's really not much discussion. Whereas the Bhagavad Gita starts with Krishna telling Arjuna what he should do, and Arjuna saying no. And so it starts with an argument. It's fascinating. I think people from other religions who are, looking for answers will find this one aspect of the Bhagavad Gita very interesting. It starts with a discussion, not just a handing down of edicts, and you must do this and you must do that. And finally, I had a really quick question. It's just been on my mind a lot. We've been reading the story of Vitrasura and the Devas and how their prayers originally are not in pure devotion. But the Devas, you think about how powerful they are, inconceivable to us. Agni is everywhere there's fire. Vayudev is responsible for the wind principle of the material world. And yet, they don't always pray for pure devotion. And so it can sometimes make us think, well, what chance do we have? They're so much more exalted and more intelligent. So how is it that these devas who are so intelligent don't get it and don't often portray pure devotion? Thank you.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we see even Lord Brahma, doing things in the beginning of creation. But Srila Prabhupada cautions us from making judgments because we're not on their level. And that's, I was thinking about this also, that the demigods worship the pure devotees. Okay? And when I first heard that, I thought, wow, that these guys, exalted demigods, they worship the pure devotee? Yeah. Okay? They're not pure devotees. Okay? They're Vaishnavas, they're serving Krishna and everything, but they still have some desire to enjoy. Right? And for a devotee, going to heaven, it's like going to hell. So why would I want to go someplace where people are just enjoying their senses? Because they have facility beyond our wildest dreams. Okay, so there's not a whole lot in the highest planets. Obviously, they do have very exalted souls, and they're engaged, fully in Krishna consciousness. But generally speaking, in this, these nice heavenly planets, there's just too much. It's just overwhelming. You can imagine thousands of times more sense gratification than you could possibly imagine on Earth. So that's why on Earth it's more advantageous. There's not so much going on, and it's not too hellish. We have the perfect situation. We are so fortunate right here, right now. The Lord Chaitanya's movement has just come to the West. It's the crest of the wave. This is the beginning. This is like just after Jesus came and just disappeared, right? This is it's tough. We don't have a lot of people into it. There's too much going on. Same kind of thing. You got all kinds of sense gratification out there. Okay? But we have the opportunity of more lifetimes than we can even imagine. This is like super, super, super fortune, right? Who knows in the future what may happen? But right now, the opportunity to pursue Krishna consciousness, there's not many people here. But if you want real gold, you have to pay for it. So we're very, very fortunate. The chanting of the holy name, and we've got the Shastras, we have Dravida and all the devotees, resources. You can't get a better situation than this. No matter where you go. So we're very fortunate. Srila Prabhupada came to Hare Krishna. I'll go to Srila
Krishna,
Prabhupada.
very wonderful class and discussion. Thank you so much. And Tala Prabhu, there are Sandhi rules. If you ever want, I can send you. It's very easy, so you can understand Sanskrit better. If you want, let me know. Haribol. Prabhu, I have one question. How was in Ahmedabad when you went in? If you remember anything, would you mind sharing? If it's not too late. If it's late, we can talk about some other time.
I have a hard time understanding through the speaker. Somebody can tell me what she said.
What it was like in Ahmedabad when you were there.
In Ahmedabad. Oh, Ahmedabad was very nice. I I could tell you, we had wonderful Pandal programs. The devotees are wonderful. It was, you set up like a circus tent. There were, it's difficult for us to imagine how big these tents are, because circuses don't come to town very much. But we're talking about a city block. Huge, huge, thousands of people, okay? And every night, Prabhupada would start the program, the devotees would chant on the stage, right? And then Srila Prabhupada would give a lecture. And he was just fire and brimstone. I mean, you're born in India, it's your duty to, be Krishna conscious and help spread Krishna consciousness, on and on and on. And people just loved it. When someone's speaking the truth, right? And we were the dancing white elephants. Prabhupada discipled, something to attract people. Here are some, these foreign devotees. It's like if somebody came here and they were more devout than Christians. Somebody comes from India and they're Christian. They're more devout than the people whose country the Christianity is popular. So, seeing Westerners, taking up very fervently Krishna consciousness and preaching and everything, they were impressed. And then when Srila Prabhupada came, and, okay, this is where it's all coming from. And, it was dynamite. So we were there about 10 days. So.
Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thanks for listening.
I have one thing to add. I love the whole teaching. Did a real great job. Everything. And I just want to catch on. I just want to emphasize in the beginning what you said. That Krishna is the origin of everything. So that pretty much answers the question for what came first, the chicken or the egg.
The last part I didn't quite.
That in the beginning you emphasized that, I'm emphasizing that what you said in the beginning, that Krishna is the origin of everything. And so that answers the question towards what came first, the chicken or the egg.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? Simultaneous. That's how the creation happened. Well, this world, this universe was put together by Brahma. Right, Brahma. Yeah. So when he appeared, there was nothing here. It was an empty universe. So he kind of like linking logs or putting things together, took all the ingredients to make it all. Right? So when the creation happened, it's not like, Big Bang and then, the evolutionary theory. Everything is created like that, the way it was before. It's recreated because in the last devastation, when the universe was sucked back into the body of Vishnu, it was just, again, came out and recreated. And during the duration of this world, when there's, every once in a while, there's devastation at the end of the Kali Yuga, right? So everything is, there's fire, and then everything is flooded, and then the flood gradually recedes, right? And things start, land starts appearing, and then, so we're actually living, where it was underwater before. In some previous ages, that's why you find, things in the earth that indicate, that was on the bottom of the ocean. Anyway, but it's kind of hard to conceive how somebody could just manifest, but they do. And there's also the deity. Isn't it deity? That all the different creatures, just like children come out, so all these different creatures came out of her womb. Mind-blowing stuff. Anyway, I gotta go. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Gospel.